Go. Hey everybody, Tori Townley here. Welcome to the Serve Brew. I am excited to introduce you guys to someone that I just met actually. My dad is really good friends with him. Dad's friends with everyone, so he super props, Dano. You're the best. But anyway, this is Pastor Jody Earley of Generation City Church in Denver, Colorado. They have been doing some incredible stuff in the world of outreach. Their picture is actually in the Serve Your City book that Pastor Dino just wrote. I don't know if they know that. They have a mobile outreach truck, which we're going to learn a lot about today. It's going to be incredible. But just get your heart ready, get your notebooks out, whatever, really lean in. I know Pastor Jody has a lot of wisdom, so today is going to be awesome. Hi, Pastor Jody.
Hello, Tori. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for jumping on today. So you said, before we got on, you said that you guys had back to school. So tell us a little bit about your family real quick. Like how many kids you guys have? Just a little snapshot of you.
Absolutely. So I've been married for 19 years now. This past July, so last month, we just celebrated 19 years of marriage. We got married young. She was 19. I was 21. Met at the church we grew up with at Church on the Move out at their summer camp, Dry Gulch, met out there. And so, yeah, I've been married, and really I jumped right into ministry right but when we got married, and we've been doing ministry together since then. Have 4 daughters and love being a dad, and the last couple of years have entered into the new realm of being a parent of teenagers. So I have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So never a dull moment around our house. We just started school this week, and so we're busy driving them around in the morning, picking them up in the afternoon, and so it's never a dull moment around here for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of girls.
Yeah, it is.
That's a lot, and teenagers all at once. Bless your heart. I'm the only girl in the family. I've got 4 little brothers, and my mom's like not girly at all, so I don't know much about that. But bless your hearts, y'all are awesome.
No, I love it. I love it. They're all daddy's girls, and I mean, I've had people even come up to me. One time we were in Target, and a gentleman just walked across the way, and he said, "I just want to shake your hands for having four daughters." So one other time we were at one of the airports out in Washington, D.C., and Richard Simmons, the guy, the Sweating to the Oldies guy, we saw him from afar, and we were like, "Is that him?" And he actually cut across and came and approached us and said, "Are all these daughters yours?" So I love being a dad, and I love every minute of it.
Golly, who knew that 4 daughters was like celebrity status?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can relate because my youngest brothers that I have are twins, and so
Okay.
oh my gosh, and my mom would send me and my dad and like the twins to the grocery store, so people thought that I was like the wife, and I was so embarrassed. People were like, "Oh, you birthed them? Oh my gosh!" I was like, "Oh my Lord, I'm so embarrassed." But yeah, it's weird how like unique things, simple things that you think are like everyday normal, people just flock to.
Yeah.
Steve Sjogren talks about, he's like one of these cool outreach dudes. He wrote this book, I don't know, random, but he talks about getting conversation pieces. He's like, go buy a pig and it'll just start conversations in public. I was like, bro, I don't need that. I have twin brothers.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Awesome.
That's cool. So I didn't know that you had kind of grown up in church. That's like your story. That's awesome. So kind of what brought you to start Generation City? Like tell us about the church itself. Like what is it today? Kind of a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a little bit of clarity. Like I grew up in church, but honestly, it was a prodigal son experience. So I grew up in a great, great church, and but I really had to come to really the knowing. I knew the church, honestly, but I really didn't know Jesus. And I got to a point, and when I really discovered who Jesus was, that's when I went all in, started serving at my church, started going to Bible college, looking for every opportunity just to minister. And because I was really passionate about helping particularly younger generations understand who Jesus is. And so we grew up at Church on the Move, my wife and I both, and I ended up interning there. And honestly, before that, I just got a job as really a janitor. I was mowing the grass, vacuuming, cleaning, and then I got offered an internship. And through that internship, really had a great taste of what it meant to be full-time in ministry, and said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And never thought I would leave there, our home church. But we ended up out at a church called Church of the Redeemer in Gaithersburg, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. And it was during that time of transitioning from Tulsa at Church on the Move to Gaithersburg, Maryland at Church of the Redeemer, that the seed of planting a church was placed in my heart. And that was right when our firstborn child came. And so it's been 14, 15 years ago that happened. And I thought, man, maybe one day it would be. And then the time came about 4 years ago where my wife and I both felt like God was calling us to step out to plant a church. And, as we thought about where, really the only place, it wasn't just at the top of our list, it was really the only place on our list, and that was Denver, Colorado. And partly because we had we visited here from Oklahoma a few times and just fell in love with the city. And then we really felt called to be in the city. So not just in the Denver metro area, but we're a church right in the heart of the city, not too far from the center of downtown, on the northwest part of the city. And it's a lot, comes with a lot of unique challenges, being an urban church in a very post-Christian context. But we've, again, had a lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs, but we feel like we're right where God wants us to be, and he's opened up some wonderful opportunities for us.
Wow, what a story. And that just shows just so much faithfulness and boldness. I can't imagine being called to start a church. I'm sure it's exhilarating and it's scary and it's hard work, but It sounds like a blast too. So you guys, truly heroes. Thank you for doing that. Leaving your home, leaving familiarity just to go start something. It's incredible. Pioneers. So what would you say, obviously you guys visited, you just fell in love with it, and maybe you can't put your finger on it, but what were some of the factors of why you feel like you're just so in love with Denver? I'm always how okay.
Yeah, well, I think there's kind of two sides. There's kind of I'd say just the natural side and then the spiritual side of it. I felt like, this is it's been rated, I believe, maybe not this last year, but the previous year, it was like the number one city to live in. People are flocking to Denver. A lot of times when people think of Denver, they just think of snow, but the weather here is actually amazing, and it's a very dry climate, so you don't have humidity. And when it does snow, it tends to melt fairly quickly during the winter time, because we get over 300 days of sunshine, which I'm told is more days than Miami gets. And we are close to the mountains, a lot of things to do outdoors. The weather's great, so you're always outside. And so that was kind of some of the things that we loved about it. But we just felt called here because even though it's a great city and a lot of wonderful things here, there's a big spiritual need in this city. And we just saw the need and felt drawn to it. And, God just began to tug at our hearts. And in some ways, we chose Denver, but really ultimately we felt like it chose us, and this is where God wants us to be.
Wow, that's so cool. I just love hearing how people fall in love with different places and people groups. It's a cool thing to me how God does that. So with that, you guys, obviously, I want to jump in deeply on the outreach side of things, how you're serving. But first, tell me a little bit about maybe some of the specific things that break your heart in the community, things that you see people going through, and kind of how cracking the code of the needs and the pain in the city has driven your outreach. So talk about maybe some of that discovery process.
Yeah. There's a lot of various needs, just like any city, any context. But I think one of the things here that is really in the forefront is just the people not seeing a need for Christ and a need for his church. And so we really just start really with relationship, and how can we connect with people? How can we show them the love of Christ? How can we show them the value of community And a lot of that has come through serving. And honestly, when we first came here, we didn't really come here with that strategy and with that plan. It was kind of, we saw that as really not just even a sub ministry, but it's really core to what we're trying to do, is just to be good neighbors. That's what, Jesus said, to love your neighbors. And that's really what we're trying to model. And so not only corporately that we do this as a church, as a group, but also individually encouraging our congregation, to love their neighbors, to love where they live, right where they're at. And, and have neighbors over, I've had neighbors over for dinner. We've done things, invited people over for maybe around Christmas, or around, one time we did something during Halloween, and we just right out in our front yard just started grilling hot dogs, and we told all of our neighbors about it. And from that had some amazing conversations that led to spiritual things. It didn't necessarily start that way, and we were just trying to connect with people, but ultimately by the end of the night, we began to talk to individuals about God and about what we're called here to do as church planners and leading this church, and just some really cool things that we've done. And so some of the ways that we've done that is we've done very simple things like handing out ice cream on a hot summer's day, just finding a nearby park. We just had some signs made up, and people even driving by would pull over and stop, and who doesn't want free ice cream, right? So we got an opportunity just to connect with them, bless them. And honestly, people were surprised. And we even had people that would try to pay for the ice cream. And we said, no, we just want to bless you. We just want to give this to you. And just little simple things like that. Another example, we launched in a school, but then we moved to a nearby location, which is actually an old church building. It's a 112-year-old church building with like stained glass. I mean, everything that is kind of stereotypical church building, but God opened up a door for us to meet there for just a great location and a great cost. And it's a temporary place, but we decided the first Sunday that we moved in there that we cut the service short and said, hey, let's just go door to door and give all of our neighbors a bag of cookies and just say, hey, we just wanted to introduce you. So I think that's something that we would want to do as individuals, and as a family. When we moved into the neighborhood, we wanted to introduce ourselves to our neighbors and say hi to our neighbors. Why shouldn't we do that as a church? And so just loving our neighbors is, when you do that, you're going to encounter a variety of needs. But I think just looking for those opportunities that come your way just by simply being present where you live and where your church is at.
Golly, that is such a great philosophy there. I am a big fan of things being organic and being personal, and just to hear how much relationship is the driving force. And it's something that you guys are personally invested in as pastors. That's so huge. Like the cookie thing is so cool. You said this is what we would do personally, so why don't all do it together? I love that. And I feel like it gives people freedom to just dream, like, what would I do? Okay, let's go and do it. Like, you have that's incredible. So I love that it's not overcomplicated. It's just relationship. That's how you find needs, is by listening. That's how you get to know people. I love that. That's your answer. So good. So with that being said, incredible stuff. Tell me a little bit about the mobile, I don't know what you guys call it. I call it a mobile dream center because that's kind of how I relate to it, but it's beautiful. If you guys haven't seen a picture, if you're watching this, please go look on their social media. This truck is beautiful. But tell me about how this whole thing got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wish I could take credit for the idea, but you've probably seen versions of this around, and the idea primarily the inspiration came from Pastor Kyle Turner at the Cause Church in Kansas City. And the moment my wife and I heard of what they were doing, and they may have gotten the idea from somewhere else, but really the inspiration came from them. And we said, we would love to do that one day. And so we call it the Hope Truck. So it's the Hope Truck. And what it came from is just started with an idea. And wasn't really something that we thought we'd be able to do, honestly, even this early in our church exists. Our church will be 2 years next month in September. So we're still a very young church. But I shared the idea with someone in our congregation, and a guy and that I became really close friends with, and said, hey, I just was sharing this idea. It's like, man, we'd love to do this one day. And not soon after, it may have even just been a week later, I get a phone call. I think it was on a Saturday afternoon. And he says, hey, Pastor Jody, he goes, remember that Hope truck we were talking about? It's like, I went and bought it. And he goes, can I park it to the church? I need a place to park it. And so he went out and really kind of forced our hand, because now we have this truck and we got to do something with it. And so he went out and bought, it was like this kind of a retro truck, it's like 1984 step van. It's like, it looks like kind of like a miniature UPS truck, or almost like an ice cream truck. And so he got that, and we shared the vision with our church, and so put a little bit of money into it just to get it painted and put a logo on it, and get a tune-up done and some things like that. And so from then, we've used it in various different ways, but honestly, the sky's the limit. There's things that we can do with it. Something as simple as maybe helping a family move. Maybe they don't have the budget to rent a U-Haul truck or get movers, and or maybe it's a single mom that we can jump in and grab some families from our church and help do something like that. We've, again, like something as simple, and it sounds so old school, but we just baked a bunch of cookies, put them in these nice boxes with a sticker, and we've driven to a local fire department. We actually cooked a meal for them, arranged a time where we could provide a meal for them, and just showed up with the Hope truck. We went to our local police department, District 1 here in this part of Denver, just blessed the police officers there. We've been to schools. We've been to even to other local restaurants and businesses that we just showed up unannounced and said, hey, we just want to bless this. And they were blown away by it. And so, but we're looking to, we're delivering some backpacks as back to school. We're doing that here later this week, and just showing up at a local school and providing some backpacks with school supplies. Another thing, we haven't done this, but you could load it up with blankets or coats for those that maybe are homeless or living on the street, or maybe families that are in need. And so really the sky is the limit, and we just even encourage our congregation, and we just say, hey, if you have an idea, if there's a way that we can use this, let us know.
Man, that's so exciting. I love it. So with, I love that it was like kind of this thing that you weren't really planning on having, and then it just appeared in your parking lot.
Yeah. Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, really. Sometimes like we're apprehensive to just go for it. So it's kind of cool when God just like drops in your lap. So I have some questions about like the practical side of it. So like as far as how you guys coordinate who's keeping up with the maintenance of it, is that like I'm not sure how old the truck is, so some of the questions, I'm just thinking if a church is kind of on the younger side like you guys are, but yeah, can take a jump to make this commitment, what kind of can they expect as far as the resources they're going to invest into it, the upkeep, and a little bit of, okay, who's the designated driver, insurance, just kind of, some of those kinds of details. What can we expect from that side of it?
Yeah. Well, I think, the guy who ended up providing this truck for us has really been the spearhead behind it. And I think you have to have someone who really shares that heart and that vision for it. At least a person that can help. So he helped take care of getting it registered, getting the tune up. He went and took it to go get it painted. And we, together as a congregation, because this honestly initially that wasn't a budget line item. And so we said, hey, here's what we wanted to do. And we cast vision for it. And we said, we actually did it towards the end of the year. We do what we call like a heart for the house offering. Some churches do like a legacy offering. And we raised some additional money beyond our normal operating budget to go towards this. And then now we've made it part of our missions budget, but just there was some startup costs that was associated with it. But I think it was Tommy Barnett who had this famous saying of the miracles in the house. And I think like you have people in your house that are in your church that are willing to step up and to be a part of it and simply casting vision for it, and someone even that can take care of it mechanically, that there's someone who's maybe handy. That's something that I'm not good with, but we got people in our church that can take care of it and make sure that it's up and running. And so I think that, I think start, counting the costs, as the Bible says, figuring out what all do we need to invest in this before we take the step forward. But I think many people will be surprised of the people that they have and the resources that God will provide, and also taking it a step at a time. We got the truck. We weren't able to roll it out right away. It took time to get it painted. It took time, but just taking it a step at a time. And then even from there, I would say if that's something like that is in your heart, is to start where you are. And, maybe you don't have a Hope truck, but hey, let's start doing things like that we'd want to do if we had a Hope truck, and just kind of start with where you are.
That's really great advice. Awesome. So with this truck happening, such great wisdom. And I love that it was the church built it, basically. Like this guy, some of them, we would call that dude the outreach crazy of the church, which I'm proud to be one myself. People come to you with all these crazy ideas, and it's awesome. And just like there is a wealth in the house, in the church. And I love that your heart is to empower people and let them be part of it, because that's what a church is. So that's incredible. So as this truck is I feel like it's almost just an enhancer to what you guys were already doing. Like the heart was there. It's just like this focal point for it's a utility, it's functional, but it's also like a beacon of literally hope. Like it's driving. If I saw this Hope truck, I'd be so excited, like, oh my gosh. So tell me a little bit maybe about what outreach. I'm not sure if you guys had this organized outreach going on ahead of time, but maybe what did it look like leading up to before the truck happened versus now? How has the truck maybe enhanced it and taken your outreach efforts even farther? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I have a lot of questions. I know I'm working on it.
No, it's good. No, I hope this is helpful to those that are watching. I think one of the things you touched on is what you said, is it really has just enhanced something we were already doing. I think if you're sitting around waiting for some kind of Hope truck, or even like a dream center or some kind of physical thing, and you say, when that happens, then we'll start doing something. Yeah, we were already out, sir. We were giving out free ice cream. We were doing these things before we had the Hope truck. And I think, again, it's that being faithful with what you have. When you're faithful with what's in your hand, God will give you what's in your heart. And so I think what the Hope truck has done is really just amplified what we're doing. It's really has made it a lot more visual. When we pull into a parking lot, a business, a school, a police department, it makes a statement when we pull into the parking lot, versus just maybe everybody showing up in their minivans and getting out, which is, again, starting there. But I think this has enhanced it, has amplified it. Even when we just have it parked during the week, we've had people that have reached out to our church and emailed us and said, hey, I'd like to know more about your church. I saw you had that Hope truck. It serves as like a banner, during the week, even when it's just sitting parked. And so I think we've really done a lot of little things here and there, and haven't really changed much of what we've been doing. This has just enhanced it and amplified it. And it's also made us, I think of what are more ways that we can use it. One of the things that we are doing, a more of an organized outreach that we're doing, is we've partnered with an organization. Now, we're still in the midst of it, so I can't tell you everything that's happened, but it's an organization called Generosity Feeds. Generosity Feeds, I think their website is either generosityfeeds.org or .com. And was started by a church planter that I happened to meet when I was living up in Maryland. He lives near Leesburg, Virginia, I believe. And so long story short is you can go to their website and get more information, but we're providing 10,000 meals for children right here in Denver. And so in 2 hours, we're going to package 10,000 meals. And these are individual meals that are non-perishable foods that we package together. And then they're light enough where they can be sent home in children's backpacks right here at the schools, or even with other established organizations, local food banks. And so this is something that we're doing. And the really cool thing about it is that it takes about 200 to 300 people to do this. And we're taking a Sunday, and in lieu of having a service, we're going to package these meals, and we're inviting the community to come be a part of it. So it's not just something that we're doing as a church, but we're reaching out to the community, because this is and we're doing at a local school, Denver public school system. And what's neat about that is that it's something where you can establish common ground with people in their community, because they may not have the same stance or belief that you do on faith, and maybe not a belief at all. But we can all agree, and we all believe that children that are hungry need to be fed. And so this is an opportunity where people can come together regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their faith, and you get to work shoulder to shoulder with people in the community. And again, creating a great reputation for your church. Even if they don't walk through the doors of your church, even at all, you're bringing Jesus to them. You're showing them the love of Christ. And so that's something that we're doing. And the cool thing about this Generosity Feeds is they help walk you through it step by step to get the word out and coordinate that event.
That's so cool. So valuable to have a partnership like that you can just work with, and they kind of do the nitty gritty, and you guys, it's awesome. And there's so many things that you've said. I'm like taking all my notes over here. I love the idea of inviting the community to serve. That's brilliant, because it also goes back to your core value of relationship. Your relationship is what drives your outreach, and so that connects all the dots. People need purpose. Like I'm not gonna go just sit somewhere with my hands in my pockets. I don't like that. But if I feel like I'm making a difference, that changes my life. So that's brilliant for churches to just invite anybody to be part of. And the idea of building a great reputation for your church is so cool to me. I hear sometimes I talk with pastors and leaders, and for them they see outreach as a return on investment kind of thing. Like, we're going to do this, but it's really about getting people to church on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great byproduct, because the heart of people coming to church is to know Jesus, and that's the goal ultimately. But I love that your heart is, we just want people to feel love, and if they're going to get Jesus somehow, and it's going to be from us whether they come to our church or not. So that speaks so much to your heart, and just thank you for valuing people in that way. And it's a humble thing. I'm sure it's hard as a church planner, but it's really cool to see and hear someone who values it that way. So I have another question. As you said 2 years, correct? 2 years?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in September.
Okay, so you're kind of, I mean, you have a history and wisdom of church life for sure, but as a newer church, what is kind of like maybe your vision moving forward, big picture of how, like, needs that you're gonna maybe accomplish, like where the outreach is going, the efforts, kind of like, here's my dream for the next 5 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with that, as things grow and it's not quite as organic, kind of what is maybe your structure plan of, here's how outreach is going to work? Do you guys go through small groups? Do you do an outreach team? I just want to know, for newer churches who are like, I don't really know where to start. We're doing acts of kindness, but it's kind of just shotgun approach. Mm-hmm. What's some of the strategy that you maybe are implementing or thinking you're going to?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, no, I think having a system, and really sometimes people may be scared off by the word system, but I think it's really a rhythm, having a rhythm, and so I know something that we've right now has been a lot of here and there, But I think as time progresses, is having maybe it's a serve Saturday, which many churches, that's not a new idea. Many churches do that. Pick a particular Saturday, whether it's once a month or even once a quarter, where it's the first Saturday of this particular month, and creating a rhythm for that. And I think one of the things that, especially as we grow, is making it more and more in the hands of people that are a part of our congregation, where you don't even have to wait on us, like, and that's the thing too, is like, maybe here's some things we're doing corporately as a church, but don't wait on us. Like, you don't need my permission to go bring some cookies to your neighbor. You don't need my permission to go down to a local homeless shelter or soup kitchen. You don't need our permission to do that. And that's something that you should be doing, not because you're a part of Generations Church, but because you're a follower of Jesus and loving your neighbors, serving your community. And, I would love to get to the point where we're trying to keep up with our people, and where it's not so much that we're trying to invite them and mobilize them to be a part of something that we're doing, but hopefully they're knocking down our door saying, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? Or we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Can we invite people to come be a part of it? And so I think having a rhythm there. And I think for us, and for anyone, it's really about your context. I think specifically being in a city, something that I've never thought about in the past, being a part of other churches, but really a lot of folks in a city, a major metropolitan city, they don't necessarily think just about Denver, for example, but they think about their neighborhood. So we have a few neighborhoods here in Northwest Denver that is referred to as the Highlands. So you have West Highland, Lower Highlands, you have Sloan's Lake, you have the Berkeley neighborhood. And so as we grow, I really would like to see folks where it's more like neighborhood teams, so to speak, and like, this is where you live already, this is where your kids go to school, this is where you're already building relationships and influence. And then at some point having like lay pastors that are over each of these neighborhoods, and they can help. There's several small groups that are in there, and they can coordinate different events within their part of the city. We would still have, those times where we come together as an entire church, but also providing opportunities because they're also going to be more aware of the needs and the opportunities right where they live.
That's really cool. I didn't think about it that way either. The cities thing, people commute, so they're in two different places. That's really a great observation. So question, hold on, let me make sure I asked this right. Let's see. Sorry. I love the idea of empowering people. I lost my question. I had it.
No worries. Yeah.
It's gone because I have so many great thoughts from this. But as you guys are growing, maybe, let's see, what would you say is maybe like one thing? I love the idea of the people kind of empowering them, and their goals are driving what's going on. Like, it's going to be, you're like, I want to keep up with it. But how do you, on Sundays, do you feel like you are needing to kind of like motivate people? I feel like y'all's culture is already, it's like, I feel like it's reflected in your family. Like, you guys are already so in love with serving. It's just part of who you are, your lifestyle. But I know some churches maybe struggle to get their people motivated to be about others. Like, it's, it's always a challenge, like, for us to not be selfish. We're human. But do you find that you need to, like, sometimes on Sundays speak to serving in general? What are some of your ways to get people excited who aren't?
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to get to that, but it was
No, that's good. I think we all, myself included, we all tend to take the path of least resistance. We all tend, we are, as a church, going upstream in the culture. So the moment we stop paddling, we're going to flow right into just our everyday lives. And And so, yes, you constantly have to be reminded. Andy Stanley is famous for saying that vision leaks, and I think, even on the micro level in different specific areas, if part of your vision is, serving and outreach, and as a church it should be, then, you're going to have to remind people of that. You're going to have to remind people of the why. And I think that's where it's important, is making sure that you're not just telling people what needs to be done or what we're going to be doing, and even the how, but is the why, and casting vision for that, and reminding people, why we reach out, why we serve, and on a broader level. And also, if there's a particular event, that you're making sure that you're not just promoting the practical information of that event, but casting vision for it. Here's why we're going to provide these 10,000 meals for kids, because one of the reasons is that through research, we found that 69% of children that live in Denver County express hunger. And so we want to do something about that. We want to provide an opportunity. And Jesus said that if we give even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, that we're going to be rewarded for that. So let's provide a meal for them. Let's come together. Let's take baby. And so looking for ways to express vision behind it. And so that's definitely something that you have to do on a regular basis, and making sure that even when you have a particular event, that you're reminding people why we're doing it.
That's incredible, Pastor Jody. That's so good. And again, it goes back to the relationship thing. I don't want to be told the answers to something. I want to be told how to get to the answers. I'm not a big fan of here's the how-to manual, go read it and figure it out. If you're teaching people the why, then they're learning the vision and how to get to that point. So
that's good.
So good. Okay, so before I have some other questions that are a little bit more tell me your favorite story, whatever. But before that, I want to go back to the relationship idea and how that's driven your discovery of the needs in the community. I just am such a fan of that and believe in that. I'm all about the art of listening, not jumping in and just saying, here's my solution to the problem if you don't even know what the problem is. So that's so cool. But what would you say maybe have been some of the key relationships, or maybe people that you would recommend churches or leaders, what conversations should they go after? I'm a new church planner. I'm in this new city. I've been living here for a little while, but I want to really know more about my community and the actual needs, the hunger that the kids are going through. Obviously, you can Google, and that's cool. But there's something else about hearing it from experts and what they see. So do you have any suggestions on hey, here's the first 5 conversations I would have as far as reaching the community?
Yeah, I think you could connect with local community leaders. I think connecting with people in education, whether it's a principal or PTA, getting involved with that, your neighbors. And I think really the principle, the overlying principle, is simply being present in your community. I think if you just lock yourself in your office or your house, and you're just simply trying to get hard data online, which there isn't great value to that, so you still do that, but just find time to go to the local coffee shop, hang out there, build a relationship. Our worship pastor came from me just spending time at our coffee shop, and ended up getting to know him, and then he comes to be a part of our church when we launched. And that would have never happened if I was simply just online researching, doing those kind of things. So being out, being present in your community, having coffee with people, scheduling appointments with local leaders, your neighborhood association, those types of things like that. And again, that doesn't mean even that you have to be the person up front, give some kind of speech. Just be present. If you go to a PTA meeting or a neighborhood association meeting, you'll be surprised at how much you know just by simply being there, listening, hearing what other people are talking about. So those would be some suggestions that I would have.
That is some brilliant stuff. And I love that be present, because I feel like even for me, it's harder and harder. The more like virtual reality happens and social media happens, going in public, it's like we just don't even have FaceTime anymore. So that's definitely a challenge, but I love it. And it's like we as humans, we crave that connection. And it's just, that's where the richness of life is individual connection. So that's cool. Be present. I'm gonna write that one. I might get that tattooed. That's a good one. So okay, so I got a couple more questions. We got a few more minutes. What would you say? This one, no pressure, but I feel like people learn the most with a question like this. So take your time. But what would you say is maybe something that is like a fail that happened in your journey of maybe reaching out in the community or even just church life in general, but something that you grew from and learned the most, like a mistake you've learned something crazy valuable from? And if not, then just tell me your victory, your best win story. That's fine. But
yeah. Yeah, I think there are a few little things that we've done here and there that maybe didn't turn out the way that we wanted to. But I would think probably the overarching thing that and even my conversations with other church planners that are even farther along than me, or maybe they're just getting started, I think something in whether even pastors and ministry leaders is learning to manage expectations, I think is a really big thing. And I think that we can measure even our own personal value or our ministry value based upon meeting certain metrics. And I believe in metrics, and I believe in setting goals. But at the end of the day, like the highest thing is committing to obedience and faithfulness and doing what God has called you to do, even if maybe you don't get the fruit that you thought you were going to get. And not simply trying things. And I'm all about experimenting things and not continuing to do things that don't work. But I think sometimes we're too quick to throw things out because maybe it didn't meet our expectation. It wasn't, maybe so many people came, we thought X amount of people were going to come. But I think being faithful to what God has called you to do, and that viewing it in the sense of a seed being planted, and it takes time for that to grow, and like we haven't seen people show up in our church in droves because of the Hope Truck or because of our outreach. But we know that this is what we're called to do. We're called to love our neighbors. We know we're called to serve our community. And if we're simply doing it because of an ROI, or return on investment, and we're supposed to meet these certain metrics, then we're going to be highly discouraged if we don't meet those things. And so I think the motivations of our heart. And so there have been times where we've done things that maybe we haven't got the return on it that we hope to immediately, but just knowing that this is what we're supposed to do, being faithful to our calling, being obedient to Scripture, then we're going to keep doing this. And I do believe that over time that you will experience fruit, you will experience great rewards that will probably exceed your expectations. Craig Groeschel has a great saying. He says that we often overestimate what we're going to do in the short term. So we overestimate what we can do in the short term, but we underestimate what God will do in the long term. And so being faithful, being consistent, being present, keep serving, keep giving. When you fall, when you stumble, get back up. If you got to get alone and cry for a little bit, go do that and just keep going, because God is faithful. He watches over His word to perform it.
Wow, you have so much wisdom. Like, I feel like you should be 90 years old with a cane. Like, that's just so good. So good. Thank you for that. All right. What would you say is maybe just like one of your favorite stories of an individual whose life has been affected, impacted through your ministry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I do have quite a bit of stories, and those honestly is what keeps me going, is just the individual stories. I think one in particular that comes to mind is through a mom that we met. My wife and I met just by taking our children to school. Her family goes to the same So her kids go to the same school. And one day, right before we were about to launch, we had our postcard go out, and we had pictures of all of our different teams kind of spread across this postcard. And our youngest, her daughter, who was 5 at the time, I told my daughter, who they're the same class, I saw your daddy's picture on our postcard. And from that, it sparked a conversation. And she shared how she used to go to church a long time ago, hasn't been following Christ, and said that she wanted to come check out our church. And so she ends up coming. Her and her kids come to church on launch day, and she recommits her life to Christ. And long story short, eventually her husband ends up coming, and he loves the church. And then we end up baptizing her husband, one of her children, her husband's brother, and his wife. So like 6 people from their family end up getting baptized. And they're still a part of our church today. They ended up actually moving across town, but they still make the trek to come be a part of our church. And, I think that's what we do, that's why we do this. And so we've seen several stories of that, where it's just an individual, a family, and celebrating those things. Even if, again, maybe your Sunday attendance isn't what you want it to be, maybe your giving's not what you hoped it would be, is that truly is what it's about, and holding close those stories to your heart.
It's so cool. That's where your treasure is. I love that it just exudes from you guys, that's what you value, is the individual lives. It's incredible. And that's the treasures of heaven. So it's awesome. Okay, I got kind of a double question, and then we can be done. I'm sorry. I'm like full of multifaceted questions. It's my favorite to be elusive and just let you say what you're going to say. Okay, so ignore me if this is not relevant. But what would you say is a fresh dream on your heart that the viewers who are watching we can join you with in prayer, whether it's for the church or outreach, or if it's just something in y'all's personal family that you want to share, just something that we can be believing with you for? What's on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, I have a few things that maybe are a little top secret that I won't share in case someone from our church tunes in, that God's continuing to speak to us about some future things. I think something that's really soon on our horizon is that just we would appreciate prayer and agreement with, is that we are preparing to move and from the building that we're in. So we believe that it's going to be a positive thing, it's going to be a great thing, but we're moving from where we are now, this 112-year-old church building that we haven't had to do setup and tear down in, to possibly back to a school, to a portable location, set up and tear down type of scenario. And so we've just been praying for God to point us to the right school. We want to stay here in the neighborhood, stay in the same part of the city, just that we'd have favor, that we'd have favor from just our team would get behind what we're doing and just prepare their hearts. And we're going to really approach this as a type of relaunch, because it's an opportunity that we want to seize going into a school. Again, it's still here in the neighborhood, but we really want to put a lot of momentum behind it and take advantage of this opportunity as a grand opening at a new location. So that's something that we'll probably be doing, more than likely what happened in the new year. And so we're going to be preparing for that in the coming months.
Hey, that's good. You got some margin to prepare your team for that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's exciting, though. I know portable is so hard. I've been part of it, and it is tough, but it's exciting, and it's worth it. If it weighs out, it's worth it. So, okay, we will pray for that and believe that your team is going to be all on board, and it's going to be a better opportunity than ever. So cool. All right, any last words of wisdom or advice that you want to throw in there before we pray?
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you for the opportunity to share, and I hope this was helpful to those that tuned in today and that were listening to this. And I would maybe just reiterate something that I said earlier, and that just simply is start where you are, and with whatever you have, whatever's in your hands. Feel free to copy and paste anything that we've done, or even looking at other great churches. But I think just start where you are. And maybe sometimes it can be intimidating and say, well, we don't have a hope truck, or we don't have a dream center, or maybe we don't have the financial margin to do some of the things the dreams that you have on your heart. But start where you are. I mean, I guarantee you that you have someone in your church that would be willing to bake some cookies, or even just go to the store and buy some cookies, put them in a nice packaging, go door to door, let people know that you're there. Going out and getting some ice cream, going to Sam's or Costco, get some bulk ice cream and just give it away for free. These are simple things that simply start where you are. Or maybe it's something as simple as just writing a handwritten note to community leaders, to teachers, letting them know that you appreciate them. And I think that would be the biggest thing, is not to let maybe obstacles or challenges or the lack that's in front of you to keep you from taking the step that you can take.
Preach. So good. So good. I need this on a record. I'm going to repeat this over and over. So good. I love it.
Thank you.
If people have questions and they want to maybe, get in touch with your team, or have any follow-up questions, is there social media? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you? You don't have to share your cell number. No pressure.
Sure. No, I won't give my cell number, but I will give my direct email. It's at Jody, Jody, at generations with an S .city, C-I-T-Y, Jody at generations.city. You're welcome to email me directly. You can go on our website and learn a little bit more about our church at generations.city. My social media handle is Jody Earley, Jody, Earley, on all the different social media platforms. And any way that I can help and be of assistance, I'd be happy to. And if not, I'll point you in the right direction.
Brilliant. Wow. This was so good. Like, I can't even explain to you. I'm not fluffing. Like, you genuinely have a heart of gold and so much wisdom. I just thank you so much for taking your time to invest in this. I know you're a pastor, so there's a lot going on, and you're a family guy with teenage girls. So just thank you. I know that it's just know that it's a value, and I'm sure that everybody watching is going to take something from it. So really appreciate you. If it's cool, I'll pray, and then we'll get about our day.
Sounds great.
All right, Father, I just thank you so much today, Jesus, for Pastor Jody and his family. I thank you for the calling on their life. I thank you for the commitment that they have, Jesus, just to be in relationship, to be present in their community, and that it's just leading the way for their church and just really other churches to look to, other communities to look to, and see an example of what your love truly looks like, God. I just pray that you continue to guard their hearts, Lord, keep their hearts pure as they grow, as they make new decisions, Jesus. I pray that you give them wisdom and favor with this new move, God. We just thank you for the journey that they've had so far, for the wonderful environments that they've been in and the cool atmospheres. And I pray that with this next step, moving back into a school, that it will just be something that is a move that has a lot of ease in it, God, that it's not something that they feel a lot of friction, but it's just like, this feels right. It fits like a glove. That there's going to be new relationships that open up through that school, Jesus, and that they're just going to be able to reach more people and grow and continue to build heaven. Just anoint them, Father. Give them extra joy this week. Put something really cool in their path, God, that when they walk through the community, whatever they see, God, just let there be a special wink from you, a blessing from you, and just bless their family and let them know how pleased you are with them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Jody. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure.
Today. We'll see you next time on the Serve Brew. See you later.